So I grew up in a very, I would say, conservative, traditional, upper middle class neighborhood just outside Boston. There were a lot of extremely well-educated women who had never had careers after they got married and started having children. I looked around me and thought, this is not the life I want. In 1995, I went to work for Disney. 2 years later, I moved across the street to ABC, where I started what was a great 7 years working in television. The conventional wisdom was that women would watch shows that were built for men, but that men would not watch a show that was made for women. I went along with that for a couple of development seasons, and one, I wasn't successful, and two, it didn't make sense to me. That was my mandate for my team that year, was let's find the next great girl show. A couple of weeks before we were going to announce the schedule that had Desperate Housewives and Grey's Anatomy and The Bachelor, I got replaced. You know, still to this day, it's the only job I felt like I didn't finish. There were several people who were colleagues of mine at the time at ABC who warned me that there were people who were after my job. Their advice was, you've got to go out and line up your supporters outside. You've got to get agents and producers and writers, and I didn't want to do that. I was convinced that I didn't need to do that, and that by doing it I was getting down into the kind of dirty fighting that I would have accused them of. I think I was a little too much of a girl during that period of time, in that I didn't fight for my job the way that I probably should have.
I mean, you could have been just as much a girl and a woman and fought.
Yeah. When I say that I was being a girl at that moment, I'm really talking about the world that I was brought up in and the expectations of how women behaved versus men. Being a good girl and being somebody who was embraced by everyone, that was my goal as a 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 16-year-old. And it's definitely something that I've had to fight against as an executive. What shocked me was that, 35 years after I'd started working, women were still having a hard time convincing men that they understood how to build businesses. We started BBG Ventures to invest in female entrepreneurs. I look at the 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds and 14-year-olds and 16-year-olds around me, and they're growing up in a much more multicultural world. They're growing up in a world where gender is more fluid, and that's going to allow them to act in a way that feels right to them.